feeling okay, Spark? Yeah, I didn't think so. I think you should stay home tonight. Yeah, I know you were gonna go out with the prince, but now you're not feeling well, so I think you should stay home. Well, it's up to him if he wants to come over here. The important thing is for you to rest. Sure, baby, I'll tell you a story. Yeah, I haven't done that in a while. You lay down on the couch by the fire. I'll get your favorite blanket after I get the door. Yeah, I know who it is. I'm always nice. Very funny. That was not a whopper. Good evening. Come on in. Can I get you anything?
No, thank you. I have come to take care of Spark while they are not feeling well.
That's very nice of you, Prince. Cobalt was about to tell them a story to help them rest.
A story? That sounds interesting.
Here's your favorite blanket, baby. And what kind of story do you want to hear? Spooky, huh? Okay. How about the one about Dracula, Frankenstein, and the werewolf? I'm partial to that one.
Because the Wolfman is the hero. How about the legend of Sleepy Hollow?
That one, huh? Oh, okay, if you're sure. Once upon a time, on the eastern bank of the great Hudson River, there was a small village called Tarrytown. About 2 miles further on is a little hollow or a valley. A river runs through there. No, I don't think there were any mermaids. Well, not at that time, anyway. The little hollow was so peaceful and restful that the townspeople who lived there always felt sleepy, so the hollow was named Sleepy Hollow. I guess I should say that they thought it was peaceful during the day, because at night they saw some really strange things, and they heard haunting music coming from the forest. When some of the brave folks went to check it out, there was never anyone there, and they could never pinpoint where the music or the strange lights were coming from. There were many stories told about ghosts and spirits in and around Sleepy Hollow, but the most famous of all is about the ghost of a man on a horse. It's said that many people saw the man. He rode a huge black horse that was as fast as the wind, but what scared the townspeople wasn't the horse. No, it wasn't the horse at all. What scared them most was that he didn't have a head. No one knew who he was, or why he rode the dark, lonely paths at night. You could be right. He might ride out each night in search of his lost head. People spoke in hushed whispers about the headless horseman. Some say he was a soldier who lost his head in a battle between the Brits and the American colonies, but no one could say for sure. In this hollow lived the schoolmaster, Ichabod Crane. He was very tall and thin, with narrow shoulders and long, spindly arms and legs. His head was small, but he had huge ears, large green eyes, and a very long nose. His clothes didn't fit him well. They were loose and flapped in the wind. He was the only teacher in the one-room schoolhouse. He made friends with the mothers of his students, and he liked it when they invited him over for dinner. Even though he was slight, he ate huge amounts of food. He loved talking about food, thinking about food, and most of all, eating food. It sounds like a certain demon we all know and love.
Haha, yes, it does. Well, you must agree, Spark. You have a healthy appetite.
I'm not sure there's anything healthy about it. When they ate the wedding dude's card, they got quite the tummy ache.
Are you comfortable, Spark? Do you need anything? Okay, I'll continue with the story. Ichabod had a good life, even though he didn't earn much money, and he couldn't afford things like a house. Well, he stayed with the different farmers in the area. He was well respected and clever, quick with the mind, but not with his hands. He tried, though. He'd help the farmers with chores like mending fences or watering the horses. Sometimes he'd cut wood or help watch the kids. After his chores were done, he'd lay on the grass beside the small river and read his favorite book, a collection of ghost stories. He loved the book, but the stories scared him because he believed everything that he read. Okay, Spark, I thought you were asleep. I'll keep going. The branches of the trees looked like ghostly hands reaching toward him as he quickly made his way to whatever farmer's house he was staying at that week. Every strange noise he heard had his heart racing faster. He was sure evil spirits were following him. He made up a little song, and he'd sing as loud as he could so he couldn't hear all the weird haunting creaks and moans from the dark forest. In turn, his screeching voice frightened the town folks. Unless they peered out their windows and saw the terrible sound was coming from Ichabod, they were convinced his song came from ghosts and evil spirits. Yeah, humans aren't as strong as we are, and they can't use magic, so some of them are afraid of things that go bump in the night.
Yes, Spark. It would be terrible if a vampire was afraid of the dark.
It's also a bad idea to let people know what scares you, because if they aren't good people, then they'll take advantage of it. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. One day, Ichabod met Cat Van Tassel. He was very attracted to them, and he learned that they were an only child, and in a few years, when their parents passed, they would be very, very rich. If he married this person, in a few years, he could live the easy life. Being the clever man he was, he devised a play to court them.
I am courting you, Spark. Courting is a lot like dating.
The problem that Ichabod ran into is he wasn't the only one courting Cat. A brawny young man named Brom Bones was interested in Cat too. Brom was tall and handsome, very strong, and an excellent horse rider. He wasn't happy at all when he found out Ichabod was after Cat. He asked around and tried to learn all he could about his competition. Brom started playing tricks on Ichabod. One night, when the schoolmaster was visiting Cat, Brom and his friends went to the school and moved all the furniture around. Ichabod was convinced it was evil spirits who did it. Brom played other tricks as well. Then one day, one of Van Tassel's servants came to the school and invited Ichabod to a party at their home. Are you sure you want me to continue? I think you need the rest. Okay, if you're sure. It was almost midnight as he rode home from the party, sad and dejected because Cat had paid more attention to Brom than to him. A cloud suddenly covered the moon, and Ichabod felt lonely and afraid. All the ghost stories he'd read were crowding in his mind, and fear was a living, breathing entity. He knew luck was not on his side, not tonight. He tried singing, but his fear was starting to choke him. Each noise from the forest seemed to be getting closer, no matter how fast he rode. He was yelling at the horse, "Come on, you stupid old horse, move faster." The horse, in a fit of temper, slowed down and turned off the road and onto the dark and deserted forest path. Suddenly, the horse stopped dead in its tracks and stared at a huge black shape. "Who are you?" he whispered. When no answer came, he asked again. Suddenly, the thing moved out of the forest and stood in the middle of the road Ichabod had just left. The cloud moved away from the moon, and Ichabod realized it was the shape of a large man on a huge black horse. The horse Ichabod had borrowed saw it too. He loved to race, and he took off like a shot to the bridge where the horseman waited. As Ichabod crossed the bridge, the horseman rode beside him. Ichabod's horse put on a burst of speed. It mattered none. The horseman easily paced beside him. His mouth dry with fear, Ichabod forced his horse to slow. The horseman slowed as well. As they reached the top of the hill, the horseman moved slightly forward. Silhouetted by the moon, Ichabod realized the horseman had no head on top of his shoulders. He carried it in his left hand. Now Ichabod was truly terrified. He rode away as fast as he could, but the horseman was right on his tail. As they reached the turnoff to Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod's horse rode right past. He could hear the headless horseman at his heels. His mount went faster still, so fast the saddle Ichabod sat upon broke and fell out from under him. The terrible race went on and on. Up ahead, Ichabod could make out a fence. He knew from the legends it was a cemetery where the headless horseman's body was buried. If the legends were right, the headless horseman couldn't cross the bridge. Hope began to grow. Ichabod kicked his horse and urged him faster. Once they reached the other side, he slowed to see what happened to the headless horseman. He saw him standing on his horse. He had lifted his arms in the air and was about to throw his head. Ichabod screamed, and something hit him. It made a terrible sound. The schoolmaster fell off his horse and lay on the ground. As he lay helpless, the headless horseman rode like the wind across the bridge. That was the last anyone saw of Ichabod Crane. Well, that's not entirely true. There are those who say he haunts the old one-room schoolhouse, and others say he haunts the bridge.
I heard another man say he saw him in New York City, where he was working as a lawyer.
I don't know, Spark. I guess you get to decide for yourself.